Okay, so I'm here with Wilhelmina, and we've gone over her kind of, and we've gone over Wilhelmina's kind of professional history and background. She has her bachelor's in early childhood education. She's done about 12 years of training in early childhood education, and we're learning she's got 3 kids, little guys at home, and a baby. And so she's looking to kind of move into not just teaching kids, but moving into wanting to teach adults who want to be early childhood teachers, right? And we're
Yeah.
also looking at maybe her opportunities for moving into the online field and being an ECE teacher of teachers, trained
Correct.
instructor for teachers. Okay, perfect. Thank you, Wilhelmina, for allowing me to record this. So, and then my next question was, what do you love besides your profession? So what are your interests? What are things that you really enjoy doing?
Number one, my biggest hobby, I would say, would be watching anime. I spent
Yeah.
7 years in Japan, and my
This is
husband and I,
anime. I love anime. Okay.
yes, I absolutely love anime.
Oh, me too. My daughter's rewatching The 12 Kingdoms. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
Oh, you have to watch this. The 12 Kingdoms. You've got to watch it. So there's
Cr-
it's on Crunchyroll.
Oh, yay!
Oh,
I
you
love
have to watch
country.
it. It's really good. All
Okay,
right.
definitely.
And, okay, watching anime. Right.
I,
Great.
I also enjoy basically anything that's new culturally. I really, really enjoy learning about new cultures, new languages. Well, not new languages, new to me,
Uh-huh.
and,
Uh-huh.
and trying different foods. Really
Uh-huh.
immersing yourself into that culture,
I
getting
love it.
to know people from diverse backgrounds,
Uh-huh.
sharing my own background, which is really diverse in itself.
Really?
And yeah, because I was raised on the small Caribbean island of the Republic of Trinidad in
Wow.
the Caribbean, and I'm of East Indian ancestry, as you can see.
Wow.
So it's kind of like people think I'm from India, but I don't have an Indian accent, and then they're like, "You're from the Caribbean, but you don't have a Caribbean accent. So what's
Oh,
going on there?"
wow. I love it. I love it. How
Yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
Yes.
great. So you've been in the Caribbean, you've been in Japan, you lived in Japan.
Yes.
Where else have you lived?
We've lived in California. I've visited New York, Florida, Arizona, New Mexico.
Okay.
Yeah, so
All over the
lots of
country. US.
traveling. Yes,
Okay, great. Love to travel. Okay.
yes.
What else? Anything else that you love to do?
I love visiting museums. I love
Oh, you
art.
do.
Yes, I do. It's one of my it's my calming hobby. So
Oh.
whenever I feel overly stressed or overwhelmed or um just like I need a break because I've been an online pupil for the past 2.5 years. So sometimes it gets to be very, very overwhelming,
Ah,
especially when there's a lot of writing and research involved.
yeah.
I take the time to, go visit a museum.
Yeah, that's so
Um,
awesome. Do
yeah,
you like fine art museums or do you like any kind of museum?
I'm split. My husband's more into fine art and I'm into modern, and we always have the funniest little debates about that. But yes, I
Okay.
appreciate all forms of art. So fine art, modern art.
Mhm.
For me, when I walk into a museum, it's like an instantaneous sigh from my brain. I
Wow.
love a museum atmosphere. A lot of the people who work at the local museums, because I'm very close to the cultural district
Mhm.
here
Oh,
in
you
Fort
are.
Worth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're familiar with me, or they'll recognize my face. So
Uh-huh.
I love that feeling of community and
Uh-huh.
cultural
Uh-huh.
sharing and
Uh-huh.
all
Uh-huh.
of that. So yeah,
All
it's
right.
yes, 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 yes. Um,
Good. Okay. All right. Let me ask you this then. If you were to design, so the goal of these 4 courses is for you to design an online course. It's for you to learn about how to be an instructional designer, how to take a subject and put it online to teach learners and to achieve, and for your learners to come out having learned something. That's the goal. It's going to take 3 courses to build it. And in the 4th course, you're going to actually have a learner go into your course and look at it and review it. Okay? So you're going to build it in the next, 18 weeks. Now, you can either do something toward advancing your profession, but it sounds like you're pretty advanced professionally. And the goal is for you to have the skill to build an online course, not to take that course and teach it, or to, maybe you do want to teach it, or to use it to, in your case, not to use it to advance yourself professionally. You're already there. So what would be something that you would just love to do to teach online? Just some kind of something where you're kind of an expert, not something where you have to learn the subject matter, something where you already know it, and something that would just really make you happy to go in and work on it, because you're going to be working on it for 18 weeks.
Yes.
So what are you thinking?
Some ideas. I have a couple of ideas.
Great.
I really would like to do something in the ECE field because I'm building my portfolio. You know,
Okay.
I have blogs already I've done for classes, and
Right.
a ton of PowerPoint presentations.
Yeah.
So anything that incorporates that, because I already have done most of the grit, the gritty work, the research, and all of that. Or it's either ECE or something related to being a mom who is going to school as a student and balancing your responsibilities as a parent slash wife slash mom with online education. So though I know it's like it's not really two different fields, because being a mom, you're basically an ECE expert.
Yeah.
so,
Right. That's for sure. Right.
so
Exactly.
that's what I've been thinking so
Okay.
far.
All right. Let me ask you, if you go for the ECE, so this is going to be a course of where your students, it's just a 2-week course. It's going to be maybe 10 to 15 hours of your students' work, or a 3-week, 2 to 3 weeks, depending on how elaborate you want to go. What are you going to teach? What's a little chunk of something that you would teach if you were to do an ECE course?
Well, when I started my journey in the ECE field, I always felt like my first introduction to ECE wasn't what I needed or wanted at the time necessarily. There were a lot of issues with the formatting of the course online,
Uh-huh.
and really with the interaction and the work required. So I think for me, developing an introduction to ECE course would be great. It would be fun. It would be me coming for full circle,
Mm-hmm.
and it would definitely be a useful tool to have as I move along in my career,
What would
to
be,
look back
okay,
on.
let me stop you there. What would be some things that you would teach in an intro to ECE? What would you teach?
Um, I would definitely teach the basics, which would be theory and practice.
What kind of
Um,
theory? Tell me about theory.
the theory, I would go over the perspectives and the research that's been done in ECE, who are the main, I call them rock stars of
Mhm.
ECE, like Piaget, all of the theorists, and well, not all of them, just the main ones, I would say. For me,
Okay.
it's always been Piaget, so.
What about Vygotsky? Would he be one of them?
Yeah, yes, Vygotsky, Piaget,
Uh-huh.
um,
Okay,
who
wait. Okay, let me stop you there. So there are a lot of intro courses on ECE already out there.
hmm
And typically they're a full semester long. I
hmm
mean, we're talking not 8 hours and you got it, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
All
yeah.
right. Okay, so let's hold that thought for 1 second.
Okay.
I want to kind of take something you love and something for your portfolio. What would you think about introducing early or young kids to museums?
Oh, that would be awesome.
Would that be fun?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would totally be awesome.
So that would kind of take you what you love, and then you with your all your skills. I mean, I think that would really show in a portfolio that you are able to take the understanding of early childhood and turn it into something that's very unusual, but just fit a perfect fit for little kids, right?
Yes,
Yay!
that's a really, really great idea. I would have never thought of that myself. I see what you did.
Love it. All right, I love it. That would be really fun. So would it be introducing them to museums and
Yes.
art? Okay, museums. And would you want to say art, art, right?
Yeah.
Art museum.
Hmm.
Okay, great. Art
Hmm.
museums. I love it. I think that would be so beautiful. What a beautiful class this would be. I love it.
Yes.
Okay, yay. All right. So if we were to do this, let's talk about this a little bit. What would that look like? So here you are. Let's start with if you had a face-to-face class of kids. All right. Now, one of the things that we have to think about is these little young kids are not going to go online and take your class. It's going to be the moms, the teachers,
Hmm.
the preschool people, right?
Hmm.
So this is a class for adults
Hmm.
on how to introduce young children to art museums, okay? So
Yes.
that's your target audience. So let's just get that clear right now, okay?
Yes.
Adults teaching young, okay, introducing, right. Ugh, children. Okay, all right. So, all right. So what kind of things, like what would be some of the topics that you would have to do if you were, so again, if you're teaching it face to face, you got a room full of kids, you got them for 2 weekends, okay? And you're going to go to 2 weekends worth of museums, whether you do 2 museums, one museum one weekend and one the other, probably that's enough for little kids, right?
Hmm.
So what would you do? How would you introduce it? Maybe before the field trip, or maybe would they all meet there at the museum? And how would you kind of introduce art to these little guys?
The first step would definitely be going over procedures and rules before we even get to that point.
Okay,
Because we're dealing with young children, rules are important.
have it. Very
Um,
good. Awesome.
and because we'll be in museums or visiting museums, it's really important to go over not only your rules and your expectations as an educator, but also your rules and expectations for behavior at the museums, their
Okay,
rules. Um,
okay. So rules in general
mhm.
in a public space
Yes.
in general, and rules, museum rules, right?
Yes.
Okay, love it.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Okay, got that. Let's move on to the next thing. What else would you do with them?
The next step would be I would introduce the places that we're going. Children do better when they have a little bit of knowledge of what's going to happen,
Okay,
and on a trip versus just taking them somewhere. So I would tell them about, where we will be going, what we will be doing there,
okay,
what to expect, what they are going to expect,
okay.
to maybe see, hear, because we also have to take into consideration children who have a hard time, handling public spaces or being around strangers or anything like that. So
Okay,
it's really important to go over in what they're going to experience from their
okay,
point of view.
okay, great,
Yes.
great, okay. All right, what then, okay, do you think maybe you might introduce kind of the topic of art and what is
Yes.
art? Okay,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
all right, tell me about that.
I would ask them what they think art is,
Oh, really?
first.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Hear get their feedback on their ideas and views of art, and depending on the feedback that I get from them, I would be able to address and what is my definition of art
Okay,
that I'm trying to pass along to them, what I
uh-huh,
want,
okay,
their views of art to look like after experiencing the trips
Yeah,
and
okay, okay,
yes.
okay, okay, okay. All right, great. Okay. So then, okay, so you've introduced it. Now you're in the museum. So now what?
The first step would be, once again, I would go over rules and procedures. That's very important when you're in the actual place.
Right, 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 right.
And in the museum itself, I would really try to incorporate music somehow into this. I'm not too sure because I feel like kids learn better when there's some music involved. So
Okay, but
maybe,
hold on a second. I would hold off on that. I think you're getting off into more than you want to bite off.
okay,
So
okay.
let's just stick to the art.
Okay. Okay. So for example, let's say we're visiting the Modern Art Museum.
Okay.
There might be a lot that they don't understand
Yeah.
about modern art.
Uh-huh.
Um, so going over what is modern art,
Uh-huh.
does modern art look like?
Okay.
Because modern art can be sculptures,
Uh-huh.
it can be
Uh-huh.
paintings. So it could be performance art, that's
Oh,
also a
sure.
form.
Right. Or installation art, right?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So going over the types of modern art, and of course, I would do that in the museum with actual examples
Right.
of them.
Okay. Great.
So yes,
Would you maybe, I imagine that you would contact the museum and maybe see if you could get a docent or something to help
yeah,
with describing it, right?
yes, most definitely.
So
Hopefully someone that can give us a tour. That
yeah.
way I have an expert on a subject matter expert on hand that can answer questions that I might not be able to answer.
Right. So there would be the logistical side of it of contacting the museum, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I think we have a really good start to a really great class. We don't want to get too much more. I think I think the most important part of it is the learning about the art. So yes, you've got all the logistics and the kind of introductions, but the most important thing that I really would love to see focused on would be this: what is art? How do you introduce art to children? What are the, how, I don't know, how do you give them that perspective without them being turned off to it, right?
Yes.
So I would imagine that you would want to do modern and classical art, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. So I think we have a good idea of your class, don't we?
Yes. That's amazing.
I'm super excited. I can't wait to see this thing be built. It's going to be insane. So, okay. Now let's just go to the EDU600 course, okay?
Okay.
All right. So we've got the topic and audience identification, and we kind of have a pretty good idea of what we are going to do for that. And so what you're going to do here with the target audience, I want you to really dig in. Who are these people, right? They could be parents, they could be teachers,
Mhm.
they could be, they could be babysitters, they could be
Mhm.
grandmothers, right?
Mhm.
So go in and
Yes.
really describe this target audience for me. And these are the people you're going to be teaching. So that's going to influence the kind of technology you use, et cetera,
Mhm.
et cetera. Now, because this is because the students, I don't know, I don't know if you're going to have a field trip or in your course, right? Are you going to,
Mhm.
but there's plenty of time to think about that.
Mhm.
But you may actually have some kind of a field trip where your students go out to a modern art and they go out to and they meet and they actually set up a meeting maybe with the museum itself and go, I've got kids and I want to, if I had kids, what would I
Mhm.
do? So there's all
Yes.
kinds of directions that you could go with this.
Mhm.
So, okay, so you've got a really good start to what's going on here now. Let's go back to EDU600 and take a look at this. All right. So then you've also got the welcome call. And, I think then I'm going to ask you, let me think a second. I'm going to put this on pause for a second while I think. Hold on. Okay, so Wilhelmina, I'm introducing you to a new iteration of this online course, and where it's called Backward Design. And we're actually starting with kind of the end in mind. And what I want to do is grab these questions right here and put them into your brainstorming sheet here. And these questions have to do, kind of what are the knowledge and skills associated with the topic? What are the big ideas and key understandings that your students will need to know? And I don't want to go into these, I don't want to go into that one, just kind of what are the skills, what skills? I'm just gonna say what skills, okay?
Yes.
So if we think about, no, and actually that's the first question, so we'll just reduce it to a couple of questions here. If your learners, remember their teachers, grandmothers, whatever, and they were able to take kids to an art museum and have them have a rich experience and to learn about modern art and to learn about classical art, what are things that they would have to be able to do? I mean, they'd have to be able to manage children in a public space, right?
Number one, most definitely.
Okay.
Most definitely. It's not as easy as it sounds, whether it's your own children or, on a professional level.
Yeah.
It's definitely how to manage children in a public space.
Right.
Safety is always number one.
Okay.
That's most definitely.
Okay. So there's logistics around.
Yes.
Right? Logistics aspects. Okay. But now let's move into thinking about introducing children to art. What are things that you kind of need to have kind of an inherent understanding about when you're introducing children to art?
I think you would have to have an understanding of ECE, of course, early childhood education, how at least some concept on a professional level about early childhood education, early child development, what is appropriate for a young child to be expressing, or the way they see the world versus your expectations developmentally, of course.
Okay, well, let's go into that a little bit more. The child perspectives. How would you approach perspectives of children in an art museum? What would you do? Like, it seems to me that you would really kind of want to welcome their ideas and thoughts and their first impressions, right? You don't want to like tell them what they're seeing. You want to just leave it wide open, right?
Yes.
So receptive to perceptions and ideas, right?
Yes.
Of the kids, right? And welcome their comments and thoughts. And then do you want to get them like talking to each other and, kind of get this dialogue and conversation going, right?
Yes, most definitely.
Okay.
A lot of reassurance, because as a preschool teacher, when you're working with young children, they're working on sense of self, self-esteem, and reassuring them that, all art does not look the same, and that's okay. Don't compare what you see here to when we go back to the classroom, it's okay. Art is an expression of self.
Okay.
So however you express yourself, it's totally fine not to. You want to address that earlier on, because I actually had a personal experience with a child who was very competitive with themselves at a young age,
Yeah,
so
OCD.
yes, exactly.
So, okay, so you know what? You hit on something really, really important, that art is an expression of self. Wouldn't that be a really great thing to teach kids, that, everybody has a different self and everybody has a different way of expressing themselves, and that art can be a part of that?
Yes.
So I think that, I think that alone would be just a powerful thing for kids to take out of that, right?
Yes.
And then that leads me to think maybe that there would be, once they go to these two museums, maybe then they would be able to create their own art piece that would express themselves. Wouldn't that be fun?
Yes.
So
Yes.
what if they did something like kids can create their own art, self-expression,
Hmm.
art piece. Okay.
At the Modern Art Museum, after you do the tour with them, because I've been there a million trillion times with my own
Uh-huh.
girls,
Uh-huh.
they actually provide the public with tools like paper, color pencils, crayons, so that the kids can, in a safe space, you know, basically one gallery that where the children can freely walk around, look at the art,
Oh, where they
and
can.
then draw, you know, with their interpretation of what they
Oh,
see. So I think a great hands-on activity would be something like that.
I love it. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do for the first week, okay, for the draft. I'm going to ask you not to focus so much on the logistics.
Okay.
Okay. I'm going to ask you to focus on what are they getting out of this art experience, okay?
Okay.
So focus on that. And I'm even going to kind of make this, let's see, art experience, children experiencing art and how to support and grow that, right?
Yes.
How to grow that experience, okay?
Mhm.
So I'm going to ask you to think about that. And that's going to be what I want to see in your submission for, work on it in your draft, and then work on it a little more in your, when I give you feedback in your final, okay?
Okay.
All right, so, and then, yeah, and then, you know, include tasks and examples of things that they would do, right? So you talked about, you know, like we've got drawing their own art piece, creating their, so it's a combination of big understandings and
Mhm.
tasks and how they would act that out, okay? So go
Yes.
ahead and just continue working on this little brainstorming sheet. And I'm super excited. I think this is just gonna be amazing. Okay, so back to the course, let's just get you going here. So once you've got this kind of worked out, like do as much brainstorming as you can, because what's going to happen then is we're going to start categorizing the topic, right? We're going to start
Okay.
breaking it down. You've got the logistics. We're going to have maybe introduction to art. That might be another category. And then
Mhm.
maybe actually interacting with art, right? Interactivity
Talking
with
about
art,
art with young
talking about
children.
art, right? So just right now, you're just throwing everything at the wall like
Okay.
spaghetti, okay? Okay, good, good. So that's what I'm looking forward to seeing. Now, in this class, after our call, go ahead and just complete this little welcome call format. And I'm gonna go ahead and, the rest is just logistics, so I'm gonna stop the recording. Okay.